As we read through the three taxes that were placed on the American colonists, you'll fill in your paper as I fill in the information on mine. So, just remember that a tax is money taken by the government for goods and services. The difference between a tax nowadays and the taxes that were placed on the colonists are taxes nowadays, we have representation. We can go and tell our congressman whether we like a tax or not. Whereas during the colonist time, they did not have representation. So it was representation, it was taxation without representation. So let's start with the three major taxes. The sugar tax. Parliament passed the Sugar Act, which was a tax on sugar, wine, indigo, a type of color dye, and molasses. The last was very important to New England merchants since they bought molasses to make rum to sell to other colonies, including the French, the Dutch, and the Spanish. And remember, the Spanish were living down in Florida at the time. This tax almost stopped the rum trade from New England, and the New England colonies protested. So, the sugar tax was really affecting these New England colonies. But some of the other colonies, although they didn't care about this tax, they started noticing, especially the leaders, that the tax was unfair. The next major act is called the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act made colonists buy and place stamps on many paper goods, such as newspapers, prayer books, marriage licenses, and other legal documents. Laborers, craftsmen, farmers, lawyers, merchants, and basically everyone had to pay this tax. Although we might not think of a tax on paper goods as a major thing nowadays because we use computers and electronics for most of our stuff, in colonial times, paper was the only way to really get information from one person to the next. So, to move info from person to person. So, to tax something like paper would be almost like nowadays to tax every time you went on your computer or you went on your cell phone or iPad or iPod. Let's finish with the Tea Act. British Parliament passed the Tea Act. This law gave one British company the right to control all trade in tea with the colonies. Tea would be shipped to the colonists on this company's ships. It would be sold in the colonies by this company's merchants, and the colonists would still have to pay the tax on tea. This company was the East India Tea Company, and that is an important one to remember. So, as you are looking at these three acts or three taxes, remember that the colonist had no say. The colonist had no say. And this was what actually was making the colonists upset. It wasn't that they were getting taxed. It was the fact that all of these taxes were being placed on them without them being able to fight against them. Once you're finished listening to the reading and writing down your notes, just make sure that you raise your hand and let me know that you're finished, because we'll begin our next activity, which will be dealing with what taxes are and how they look.